call this organizational meeting of the Southwest Licking Board of Education to order. Read the meeting notice. Notice is hereby given that the organizational meeting of the Southwest Licking Local Board of Education, Licking County, Ohio, on Wednesday, January 13th, 2021 at 7 p.m. in the Southwest Licking School Board Meeting Room, 927B South Street, Chaska, Ohio. The purpose of the meeting will be to hold the calendar year 2021 organizational meeting. The regular January board meeting will immediately follow the organizational meeting. We'd like to recognize all of our visitors, both here and online, and if you will please stand with me for the Pledge of Allegiance.
This is Mr. Phillips' 5th period yearbook class, and this is the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Mr. Jones, will you call the roll, please?
Mrs. Moore.
Here.
Mrs. Spindler.
Here.
Mr. Vincent.
Here.
Mr. Zani.
Here.
Mrs. Engel.
Here, we have a quorum when we can continue. We need a motion for the adoption of the agenda, please.
So moved.
Second. Any discussion? Right, Mr. Jones.
Mr. Zani.
Yes.
Mrs. Moore.
Yes.
Mrs. Spindler.
Yes.
Mr. Vincent.
Yes.
Mrs. Engel.
Yes, that passes. Nomination and election of officers. Need a motion to select president for the 2021.
Madam President, I'd like to move John Vincent for president for the 2021 school year, please.
Second. Any discussion?
Thank you. I'm
Assuming you'll accept.
honored. I will absolutely accept it. I'm honored. Thank you very much.
Mr. Jones.
Mr. Zani.
Yes.
Mrs. Moore.
Yes.
Mrs. Spindler.
Yes.
Mr. Vincent.
Yes.
Mrs. Engel.
Yes. All right. You ready? Do we do this now, or we
You go
No,
first.
Vice President
Number
first?
3 is
Okay, we
he
can do
takes
that.
the chair.
And how about a motion for Vice President?
Madam President, I'd like to move Kathy Spindler to be vice president next year,
Second.
assuming she will accept that.
I would love to. Thank you.
Okay.
All right. Any discussion? Mr. Jones.
Mr. Zani.
Yes.
Mrs. Moore.
Yes.
Mrs. Spindler.
Yes.
Mr. Vincent.
Yes.
Mrs. Engel.
Yes. All right, that motion passes. All right, Mr. Vincent, are you ready?
I am, unless you want to finish it. It's your call.
No. Nope, it's to you.
All right.
Ready?
Sure.
Do we all move?
Yeah, we have to go. You're here, and then alphabetical.
Should we take our
What do you
computers
want?
for
I mean,
COVID?
ideally, yeah,
Yeah.
you just come here, Kathy, and then you just slide.
Yeah, okay. I can do that.
That'll work.
Anybody want a cake?
Hey now.
My bad, sorry.
Musical chairs.
The name change.
Did you bring my computer?
I didn't go far enough.
You gotta bring my computer down here, Mr. Jones.
Is that your coffee?
Yes. Can't go anywhere without my sweet tea. All right then. We'll move on to number 4 on our agenda, resolution, set regular meeting dates, time, and place. We have an agenda item 4A.
Motion to approve 4A. I say stick with what we have. Third Thursdays of the month at 7 p.m. Here.
A discussion about next month possibly holding the first meeting over at the new school. I'm just throwing it out for discussion.
That's a great idea.
I don't know whether this is the right time or not, but my thought is it'd be fun to go over to the new school and have a meeting, and Jeff says he can do it. If anybody can do it, he can do it, so.
I think that'd be awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, so the first meeting in February would be at the new middle 4-5 school, and then the rest of them would be on the third Thursday. Okay,
Okay. So we have a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second that.
Okay. Mr. Jones, or discussion, sorry. Mr. Jones?
Mrs. Spindler,
Yes?
Mrs. Engel,
Yes.
Mrs. Moore,
Yes.
Mr. Zani,
yes,
Mr. Vincent.
Yes. That passes. We'll move on to 5. We have several agenda items under 5. We can, I believe, do all of them, or we could separate them. I would like to talk about H. So we could separate H out maybe, but
I'll move 5A.
Second?
okay. Any discussion? Mr. Jones?
Mr. Zani,
Yes,
Mrs. Moore,
Yes.
Mrs. Spindler,
Yes?
sorry, Mrs. Engel,
Yes.
Mr. Vincent.
Yes. All right, moving along, 5B,
I motion 5B through G.
second,
discussion. Okay. Mr. Jones?
Mrs. Moore,
Yes.
Mr. Zani,
yes,
Mrs. Engel,
Yes.
Mrs. Spindler,
Yes.
Mr. Vincent.
Yes. Okay, that motion is approved. We will move on to 5H. Someone like to motion?
I'll make a motion to approve 5H.
I will second it.
All right, any discussion? Well, I would like to perhaps make a friendly amendment. If you see the math here, we are budgeted to make $1,600 a year as a board member, provided that there were 20 meetings. I talked to a few of you earlier last year about possibly changing it so the dollar amount is basically the same, but we go up to the 125 maximum allowable by law. But we would only do that for 13 meetings, which would make it $1,625. So that would be a $25 more increase. Now I know all of that would be reflective upon the next election in November, so that wouldn't apply to any of us now. But I did some research for other school districts around us, and some don't have any cap on meetings at all, but have the $80. Others have 125, which again is the max allowed by law. And they have no restrictions at all. So it's kind of all over the place. It just seems kind of low, and with considering all the time that we put in, and you see what the other government entities and 1600's budgeted anyway, I would like to see it change too. So my amendment proposal, if friendly amendment, if someone were to agree to it, would be to change it from 80 to meeting to 125 per meeting, but only 13 meetings, which would basically be $1,625, $25 more total than. And when I talked to Mr. Jones a few months ago, he said as long as he's been here, it's always been $80, and just recently, a few years ago, it changed to 20 meetings, and prior to that, it had been 13. So that's what I'm proposing, and I'm curious to see what you all think.
I think it's a great idea, even though it won't affect me, but I think down the road, I think it's feasible, it's not wasting our money at all, and we do put a lot of time in when we attend all the meetings and the extra stuff that we do on the side. I think it's very appropriate for that.
I agree, and I think that if we look at the different, I don't know how to put this politically, the ages of everybody on the board right now, we're gonna be looking at many of us that have kids that are older. So we've got to encourage younger parents to come out and recruit younger parents to get on the board.
Yes.
Agreed.
Mr. Jones, should we perhaps vote the original motion down and re-motion as an actual 125 for 13 meetings motion?
I mean, there's two ways to do it. It's a friendly amendment, or you can vote
Yeah.
on his amendment, because you can do it.
You can do it
You
as
can,
a, okay.
he can move it, to amend the resolution. If
Okay.
it's a second, then we can vote on the amendment. If it approves, then we vote on the new motion.
Okay.
But either way, we can always just vote it down, and
Well, I would accept it as a friendly
Okay.
Okay.
amendment.
So I-
It's all right with
just
me.
wanted-
Absolutely,
wanna
I
make
will,
sure it's
thank you,
nice
no, I was getting ready to ask.
Clean and clear, that's what I was told, yeah. What's
Our
the
resident parliamentarian is
I just
Cleanest
have a
and-
question.
cleanest
This
and
doesn't
clearest.
affect budgeted amounts for it. Am I correct in hearing what he said, that there is this in the budget for the future?
Yeah, we budget, the maximum every year for
Okay.
board members, so.
Because it won't affect anyone until next January,
Yeah.
potentially, new people are reelected.
Are you okay with the friendly amendment?
Yes.
So the new amendment is now 125 for up to 13-minute meetings.
Okay,
Okay. Mr. Jones?
Mrs. Engel,
yes.
Mrs. Spindler,
Yes.
sorry, Mrs. Moore,
Yes.
Mr. Ziny,
Yes,
Mr. Vincent.
Yes. That is approved. So, just want to clarify, we approved the amendment, or we approved everything?
I approved everything.
Okay, then we are ready to move on. Thank you, Mr. Jones. I don't know if we want to do all of them or individually, but I'll be willing to take motions for that.
I motion I through N.
Second.
good idea.
Mr. Jones, I'll get used to this in a minute.
So you're fine. Mrs. Moore,
Yes.
Mrs. Spindler,
Yes.
Mrs. Engel,
Yes.
Mr. Ziny,
Yes,
Mr. Vincent.
Yes, that is approved. We'll move on to item 6. We can go individually, or we can take all of them.
I motion to approve 6A through D.
I'll second that. Is there any discussion? Mr. Jones?
Mrs. Engel,
Yes.
Mr. Vincent,
Yes.
Mrs. Moore,
Yes.
Mrs. Spindler,
Yes.
Mr. Ziny.
yes,
Okay, that is approved. We'll move on. I believe these were probably going to... We'll do 7A separately, and then we'll move on from there.
I'll move item 7A.
I'll second that.
Okay, so we need to... Service district representative. Oh, I misread that. I apologize. So,
This is all designated superintendent. these
right,
days.
I apologize. I thought it was, yeah, never mind. Okay. Mr. Jones?
Mr. Ziny,
Yes,
Mrs. Engel,
Yes.
Mrs. Moore,
Yes.
Mrs. Spindler,
Yes.
Mr. Vincent.
Yes. That is approved. I think we can probably finish all these up. I thought this was the OSBA stuff.
Motion, go ahead.
Motion to approve 7B through F.
Second.
Discussion.
So are we going to put people on these, or do we not do that now? I'm confused.
No, we're under
Seven.
seven.
Appointing
Seven.
you or.
You're
Wait a
the,
minute here.
yeah, 7, you're the
That's
designee
where
for
I
all of
messed
those.
up too.
It's you. It's you.
It's all you.
Okay, I'm ready.
Mr. Jones?
Mrs. Spindler,
Yes.
Mrs. Moore,
Yes.
Mrs. Engel,
Yes.
Mr. Ziny,
yes,
Mr. Vincent.
Yes. That is approved. We'll move on to A. Appointment of superintendent treasurer advisory groups. Do we want to take them individually, or do we want to kind of decide as we go and then make one big thing at the end?
You don't need to do a motion for these, it's just
These are
volunteers.
just, these are
Okay.
just appointments, yeah.
All right, policy. Any takers?
Very exciting.
This is usually the president, Mr. Vincent.
Okay. Thank you. Policy is so exciting. Provided that the policy meetings can be after 3 o'clock, I'm fine with that.
I can be on policy too. I've been there before. It's not.
All right.
It's not exciting.
All right.
Just kidding.
Curriculum and technology. I like that one. I don't mind doing it, but if someone else wants to, that's perfectly fine as well.
I can do that one, but I'm the same way. If somebody's got a burning passion that,
go for it.
okay, okay, I can do that one, yeah.
All right. So, do curriculum and technology. That's the one I enjoy the most, so thank you guys. All right. Building and grounds.
I would like to stay on that one.
Okay,
I mean, I also would like to stay on that one if nobody else wants it, but I'd much rather stay on D than on C. But I mean,
Go ahead and take it, that's fine.
okay,
all right. So we have
I'm not ready.
Deb and Kathy. I wasn't writing them down either, but Mr. Jones has it correct.
Yeah, right.
All right, Public Relations Communications Advisory Group.
I definitely would like to stay on that one if
Okay,
it's okay.
Kathy and,
I can do that one, but if somebody else wants to, that's okay too.
okay,
Because my first choice is pupil services, so
all right. Pupil Services Advisory Group.
that's, like I said, that's my first
Okay.
choice, so.
I would like to stay on that one too.
Okay,
Okay.
and then Finance Tax Abatement Advisory Group.
Really like
I
this
would-
one.
Yes,
I would really like for Deb to stay on this one, please.
and I would,
I would like to nominate John to stay on this one as well.
we will continue our work if everyone's okay with that, but Mr. Ziny, was there anyone you
No,
wanted on?
I'm good.
Okay,
I'm okay with what you got set up.
You let us hold it, you'll let us hold it, Roger?
I will.
Okay. Will you be our substitute if
I'll
we need
double
you?
second it.
Okay. That's awesome.
all right, so since we don't need to vote on that, I believe we can move on to 9A.
And these are, if the board wants to establish any other committees or advisory groups.
These would fall under public.
Yeah, these
Records.
would fall under the public
Community
records law,
committees.
public meeting stuff. We typically haven't done this, but we put
Still
on there in
there.
case you want to.
I don't necessarily see a need for that, but you guys,
And those can be set up at any time that we would need to along the
Exactly.
year as well,
Yep.
correct, Mr. Jones?
That's correct.
Okay.
Is that for 9A and B or just? A?
Yeah, A and B both, yes.
Are there any additional advisory committees that you need,
I don't, not
Dr.
this time,
Perkins?
no.
Okay.
all right. So now we have to go to OSBA, delegates and designees. So we can take them individually or we can kind of decide and go together.
I motion 10A to be Mr. Vincent with the alternative as Ms. Spindler.
You don't need motions if we don't
Well,
want
Okay,
it says resolution.
yeah,
to. Resolution. We can do it that way, yep. Go with it.
all right.
Want to do a second just to cover?
I'll
It
do a
says
s-
resolution.
I'll second that.
Any discussion? Mr. Jones?
Mrs. Moore,
Yes.
Mrs. Engel,
Yes.
Mrs. Spindler,
Yes.
Mr. Zani,
Yes.
Mr. Vincent.
Yes. That passed. 10B. Designate legislative liaison and alternate to OSBA. Anyone?
Should probably be somebody on policy.
So I can,
Makes sense.
I can do it if you don't
okay,
want to.
no, go ahead.
I'm not gonna make a motion now, because Rick yelled at me.
I'll motion Mrs. Spindler if we need a motion.
Way to go.
You don't think we need
I
one?
don't know what that means, that I have to go to meetings when they talk about new laws.
Yeah, there'll be a session at the
Oh, it's
OSBA.
at the conference.
Normally there is.
Okay.
I think it was probably a Zoom one the last year. I know the delegate session was Zoom this past year, so. We can pray that it won't be, that there'll actually be a conference.
All right, so we have Mrs. Spindler there. Do we need an alternate then, Rick?
That's up to you as a board if you want to or not.
I'll be the alternate if everyone's okay with that. Okay, let's move on to 10C then. Liaison for Student Achievement and Learning to OSBA.
I can do that. I've done that and I can continue to do that.
Okay. Any discussion on that? All right, thank you, Candy. Let's move on to 11A. Designate a liaison, Tax Incentive Review Council. I believe traditionally in the past this has been Mr. Jones. So someone would like to move that?
Motion to approve Mr. Jones for 11A.
I'll second that.
Okay. Any discussion? Mrs. Mr. Jones?
Mrs. Spindler,
Yes.
Mrs. Engel,
Yes.
Mrs. Moore,
Yes.
Mr. Zani,
Yes.
Mr. Vincent.
Yes. That passes. Okay, moving right along, we need adjournment.
I'll motion to adjourn.
Second.
Discussion? Mr. Jones?
Mrs. Engel,
Yes.
Mrs. Moore,
Yes.
Mrs. Spindler,
Yes?
Mr. Vincent,
Yes.
Mr. Zani.
Yes.
Okay, it is 7:20 and we are adjourned.